This video is meant to be an intervention of sorts for the Biden Harris administration. Hi, I'm John McNeil, and this is the Invest Strong Network. Welcome. So, at this moment, and we're talking early June 2022, the Biden Harris administration is facing some really strong headwinds on the economic front. Now, first and foremost of these headwinds is inflation. Now, certainly, I don't have to tell InvestStrong viewers what inflation is doing, right? So you cannot make a trip to the grocery store or to the department stores or, for heaven's sakes, to the gas station without being smacked in the face by much, much higher prices. Now, this inflation will eventually work its way through the entirety of the economy and push the nation towards recession. Now, the good news is the labor markets have remained remarkably strong and buoyant during this period. So the unemployment rate is still very, very low, and wage increases have continued to take place, smaller, right, and certainly not keeping pace with inflation, but still eking higher, right? So we are not, certainly by my reckoning, we're not in recession yet, but it looks like we're headed towards recession at some time in the future, especially if this inflation thing cannot be brought under control. Now, the Federal Reserve is doing some things. They have begun to raise interest rates. They're also now doing this quantitative tightening, which is designed to take liquidity out of the economy. So all of this money that was printed like crazy over the last 2 years to keep the American people and companies liquid through the teeth of the CV-19 pandemic. Uh, that was great, right? I'm not blaming anyone or casting aspersions. I think it needed to be done. But at some point, all of that money printing, there will have to be paid back. And the time to pay the piper is right now because inflation is going like crazy, which is the natural result of quantitative easing and money printing and deficit spending, right? But there are some low hanging fruits that the Biden administration can pluck that can make things much better on the inflation front. Now, I've mentioned all of these things in previous vids, but in this instance, I wanted to put them all rather in one concise video, and really, I hope the powers that be in the Biden Harris administration and the Dems in Congress would see this and really act on it. Okay, the first bit of low hanging fruit that the Biden people could pluck would be to allow more legal immigration. So, this legal immigration increase of working age people, that's a very important component, would allow more persons to come into the country and take positions that are vacant and have been vacant for a long time. I know I work in the hospitality industry, and the hospitality industry here in Houston have been just absolutely starving for workers. Many of the staffs that existed previous to the pandemic, some of them have elected not to come back, or many of them have left the workforce in its entirety. And this is creating a heck of a problem throughout the hospitality industry and other industries nationwide. Now, many companies have elected to make up this difference by paying more, and that's good. But one of the things that has done is it has pushed wage inflation and the cost of their goods and services up because now they have to pay more money to attract a shrinking workers from a shrinking labor pool. So my suggestion, and been saying this till I'm blue in the face over the last couple of years, allow more legal immigration of working age people into the country. And that will expand the labor pool, that will drive down wages, It'll put downward pressure on inflation, and it would also expand the roles of taxpayers into the legacy programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, others, and allow for just more liquidity in future years for those programs. And so, really, it's a win-win-win uh, proposition for everyone. Now, I hear people out there saying right now, but wait, Brother John, don't Republicans oppose immigration? Yes, they do, writ large. But still, you have Republicans who are most vehemently opposed to illegal immigration. So this gives the Biden administration an opportunity to increase the number of legal immigrants of working age. That would be a great help in fighting wage inflation. All right. Second bit of low hanging fruit that the Biden people could pluck would be to remove all of these tariffs and taxations that the prior Trump administration had applied to imported goods. These things had the effect of driving up the cost of goods from China, from Mexico, even from Canada, lumber, right? And other things that is just killing the economy at this point. By repealing those, you allow for lower prices on imported goods and more variety on the shelves and on the tables of the American people at lower costs. That's exactly what the doctor ordered at this moment. And Mr. Biden could actually do this with a stroke of a pen. Does not need congressional approval to do this. And I would highly recommend that he and Miss Yellen and Miss Harris, and I would highly recommend that they do that immediately. Now, the third thing I suggest, and I mentioned it in a very recent vid I did, was I think that the Biden administration should increase the annual contribution limits for all of the government bond series. That's the E bonds, the I bonds, and the T bonds. Increase those limits from $10,000 to $30,000, especially for the I bonds. So the I bonds are designed to allow savers to outpace the rate of inflation. Now, that's key because right now, savers have a terrible dilemma. They can put their money into a safe and secure bank account or CD and get next to nothing, which means that inflation will basically rip their life savings apart, or they could be pushed to seek a higher rate of return by investing in stocks or bonds or real estate or, God forbid, cryptocurrencies, and run the risk of a bear market ripping their life savings apart that way. Much better would be to increase that limit from 10,000 to 30,000 annual. That would allow working class and middle class people to shelter their income and their savings rather from this raging inflation. And it would also provide, especially the I bond series, would provide an inflation outpacing rate of return without risk. That's something that I think the Biden-Harris administration ought to seriously think about. And I believe that he can do that unilaterally. He does not need the approval of Congress to do this, right? So Ms. Yellen, who's over the Treasury, who issues these notes, and Mr. Biden, the president, they could get together and they can do this tomorrow. And I would highly suggest they would do that. That would give working class, middle class people a way of outpacing inflation, at least for the first year or so. And then after that time and the period is unlocked, they have access to their funds, and that's fine, right? So that. Now, I would also do this as a longer term goal. I would suggest the Biden administration rethink this business on forgiving the student loan debts. Now, I'm actually fully in favor of that. But what I would suggest to get Republicans on board on this thing is to tie the forgiving of student loan debt to the recipients volunteering their time in the community. So it could be a United Way organization or a volunteer fire department, a volunteer constabulary, a soup kitchen, anything. But volunteer between 12 and 15 hours a week, right? That's basically 2 shifts to a volunteer organization, and we'll forgive your student loan debts after a year and a half or 2 years. And you could actually even expand the program to include post-secondary education and specialty education, right? So for lawyers who have enormous debts from going to law school, doctors who have massive debts from going to medical school, you can begin to forgive some of those debts, some of those student loans, provided they take on pro bono cases that would relieve the burden on indigent persons and the system, these government systems, to care for the indigent people in our society. And that's a win-win-win situation for everyone. And I think even Republicans would be on board, right? Because the student benefits because they get their debts forgiven, the community benefits because they get all of this volunteer action in these critical areas, and the nation benefits because you have persons, needy persons in the community who are having their needs met, right? A win-win-win for everyone. And that's low-hanging fruit the Biden-Harris administration can pick today. Get to it, in my opinion. All right, so those are my thoughts for this week. Let me know, please, what you think on any of these items. Leave a comment in the comment section. I'll respond to each one, I promise you. Also, if you found this vid informative or interesting, please hit the thumbs up button. Do that for me. I'd really appreciate it. And of course, subscribe. Please subscribe to the Invest Strong Network. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much, friends, and good blessings.